You're looking at a 1966 Corvette chassis with a LS1 motor out of a 98 Corvette. And I'm getting ready to attach the transmission to the back of it today. And I just wanted to make a few checks before I go bolting it in there. And I wanted to show you what it's a good idea to do to avoid problems later on. Now this is a 4L60E. I bought it. It's a rebuilt transmission from a transmission shop. I don't know what donor car it came out of, but I do know it's a 4L60E. I bought a new flex plate, a new torque converter. I've got bolts for the torque converter right here from ARP. I've got bolts for the flywheel or for the flex plate from ICT Billets. And before I just go trying to bolt that transmission onto the engine, I'm going to make sure that everything I've got for it is going to work. Well, I've got these parts right here. I can go ahead and make sure that the bolt pattern on the torque converter matches up to the bolt pattern on the flex plate. And that looks really good. Also, I can check the length of my bolts, make sure the length is okay, and also that the threads are correct. I can look right back here and see that the bolts are just fine. Now I can make sure that the flex plate I've got is going to bolt up to the engine okay. Let's see. There we go. Looks like that whole pattern's okay. Double check one of my bolts. Threads are okay. Length looks about right. Also, to make sure that this is the correct flex plate for this engine, I can look right down here where it meshes with the starter and see that that's right where it needs to be. One other thing I can do is make sure the snout on this torque converter fits into the back end of the crankshaft, and it does. And now I'm going to stick the torque converter onto the transmission. These things got a little bit of weight to them. And you got to rotate it around, and you hear it kind of clicking and locking in. And you're going to have to rotate this and wiggle it and push it. And it's got a mesh with two different sets of splines and those little cogs in the back. So I had to rotate and mess around with it for a few minutes before I could get it all the way seated in there. And it is now. So I've rotated it to where one of the mounting bolts is kind of in line with the center here, because since it's not bolted up to anything, this will wiggle just a little bit. But what we want to do is now measure the distance from this mounting point to the outside of the case. So to do that, I'm just going to put a straight edge on here, and then a little scale here, and that measures about an inch, a little less than an inch and a 1/16. And on the engine side here, you can see I've already got the flex plate bolted onto the crankshaft, and all the bolts are torqued down. And what we want to do is make a measurement from the surface here where the torque converter attaches to the back surface of the block. And to do that, I'm just going to lay a straight edge across here. Now I can see there's about a 30-second gap right there because I'm resting on the ring gear. So I'm going to take that into account. But I'm going to measure from the block over to my straight edge here. And that's actually about a 30-second over 7/8 of an inch. So if I subtract the 30-second, I can say that from here to here is 7/8 of an inch. So if we had 7/8 of an inch over there on the engine between the flex plate and the back of the block, and an inch and a 1/16, just a little under inch and a 1/16 here between the mounting pads of the torque converter and the front of the transmission, the difference is just a little under 3/16 of an inch, which is right where we need to be. Should be between about 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch. So when this transmission gets bolted to the engine and the torque converter gets bolted to the flex plate, Well, it'll pull forward that amount that we just figured, and we know we have nothing in a bind, nothing excessive pressure is being put on the torque converter into the transmission. So now we can feel confident that when we put this whole assembly together, it's the way it should be. And I haven't wasted a bunch of time trying to put it in the car first and then finding out there's a problem, pulling it back out and trying to figure it out. I've verified in advance everything is right. And this is true for every automatic transmission engine combination. This happens to be a Chevy, but it'll work for your Ford or your Mopar or just about anything. So hope this helps, and will save you some heartache later on. And before your final assembly, be sure and dump a quart of transmission fluid in your torque converter.